The champagne flute slipped from Marcus Chen's hand, shattering against the polished marble floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom. But he barely heard the sound. His eyes were locked on the entrance, where his assistant Tom Hendricks, quiet, unassuming Tom, who'd worked in the supply chain department for 3 years, had just walked in wearing an impeccably tailored suit, his arm linked with a woman so breathtaking that half the room had turned to look. Marcus had seen that woman before. Yesterday, at the venture capital meeting where she'd torn apart his expansion proposal with surgical precision before writing a check for $50 million to his competitor instead. Victoria Laurent, the ice queen of Silicon Valley investment firms. And she was smiling at Tom like he'd hung the moon. Marcus stood frozen among the city's elite at this charity gala, his mind reeling. Tom Hendricks, the man he'd passed in the hallway 1,000 times without a second glance. The employee whose name he'd only learned last month when signing off on departmental reports. That Tom was here, in this exclusive event that cost $10,000 a plate, looking more comfortable in his skin than Marcus had ever seen him. Something cold and uncomfortable twisted in Marcus's chest, though he couldn't name it. Regret? Curiosity? Or perhaps the first flicker of recognition that he'd been blind to something important. It had started 6 months ago, though Marcus hadn't noticed at the time. Tom had requested a meeting, something about flexible work arrangements. Marcus's secretary had penciled him in, then canceled twice when more important matters arose. The third time, Marcus had simply sent an email through HR. Company policy is clear. Core hours are mandatory for all employees. No exceptions. He'd thought nothing of it. Marcus Chen hadn't built a tech empire worth $2 billion by making exceptions. He'd done it through discipline, focus, and unwavering standards. At 42, he'd sacrificed everything, his marriage, his friendships, countless holidays and weekends, to create something extraordinary. He expected the same dedication from his team. Tom had never requested the meeting again. Marcus had assumed that meant the matter was resolved. He'd been wrong. Now, watching Tom laugh at something Victoria said, Marcus felt the full weight of his ignorance. He drifted closer, unable to help himself, catching fragments of their conversation. And then Lily said she wanted to be a paleontologist who discovers dinosaurs on Mars. Tom's face glowed with paternal pride. She's 7. The imagination is incredible. You're raising an aerospace paleontologist, Victoria said warmly. The world needs more little girls who dream that big. How did her science fair project turn out? 2nd place. She built a volcano that actually erupted. We worked on it every night for 2 weeks. Tom's smile faltered slightly. Well, every night I could get home at a reasonable hour anyway. Marcus felt something sharp pierce through his chest. Lily. Tom had a daughter. How had he not known that? Because you never asked, a voice whispered in his mind. Because you never looked at him long enough to see him as a person. The memory surfaced unbidden. 3 months ago, Tom had arrived late to a department meeting, looking exhausted and apologetic. Marcus had made a cutting remark about professionalism and punctuality. Tom had simply nodded, said nothing, and stayed an extra 3 hours that night to finish his work. Marcus had seen it as dedication to the job. Now he wondered what Tom had sacrificed to be there. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself noticing things he'd been blind to before. He saw Tom arrive each morning at exactly 7:30, earlier than almost anyone else. He saw him work through lunch at his desk, phone propped up showing what appeared to be a video call with a young girl. He saw Tom leave at precisely 5:15 every single day, moving with the urgency of a man racing against time itself. And for the first time, Marcus wondered why. The answer came unexpectedly on a Thursday afternoon, when Marcus was leaving a late meeting on the 3rd floor. He rounded the corner and nearly collided with Tom, who was standing in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, his face etched with worry. Mrs. Patterson, please. Just 1 more week. I know I've been late with payment before, but I get paid Friday, and I can give you half then, the rest by the 15th. Tom's voice cracked slightly. She needs consistency right now. I can't uproot her again. This is the 3rd daycare in 8 months. Marcus stepped back, unseen, guilt flooding through him. I understand you have policies, Tom continued, defeat creeping into his voice. I'll figure something out. Thank you for your patience until now. When Tom lowered the phone, his shoulders sagged. For just a moment, the competent, quiet professional disappeared, replaced by a man carrying a weight that seemed almost too heavy to bear. Marcus cleared his throat. Tom spun around, color draining from his face. Mr. Chen, I didn't see you there. I apologize. I should have taken that call outside. Walk with me, Marcus interrupted, surprising himself. They walked in silence to Marcus's office, an enormous space on the 20th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus had spent countless nights here, sleeping on the leather couch, showering in the executive bathroom, choosing work over everything else. Once, he'd been proud of that. Now it just seemed lonely. "Sit down, Tom." Marcus gestured to a chair, and for the first time in years, sat beside an employee rather than behind his imposing desk. "Tell me about Lily." Tom's eyes widened with surprise, then filled with something that looked like relief at finally being asked. The story poured out. His wife Sarah, diagnosed with aggressive cancer when Lily was 3. 2 years of brutal treatments, mounting medical bills, depleting their savings. Her death 18 months ago, leaving Tom alone with a grieving kindergartner and debt that seemed insurmountable. "The life insurance helped," Tom said quietly, "but it didn't cover everything. I had to sell our house, downsize to an apartment. Lily started having nightmares, anxiety. She needed therapy, stability, routine. I needed to be there for bedtime, for breakfast, for the moments when she woke up crying for her mom." "The flexible schedule request," Marcus said, the pieces clicking together with sickening clarity. "I thought if I could work 7 to 3, I could pick her up from school, be present for homework and dinner. I'd make up the hours in the morning or from home after she went to bed." Tom met Marcus's eyes directly for the first time. "I wasn't asking to work less, just differently." Marcus felt shame burn through him. "I never read the details of your request. I just saw it as someone trying to bend the rules." "I know." Tom's voice held no accusation, which somehow made it worse. "I understood. You built this company on certain principles. I just hoped that maybe there was room for life. But I made it work anyway. I've never missed a deadline. My performance reviews are solid. I found daycares that stayed open late, paid premium rates I couldn't afford, picked up side freelance work on weekends, while Lily was with babysitters." Tom confirmed softly. "She's resilient. We're managing. It's not ideal, but we're surviving." Surviving. The word echoed in Marcus's mind. Once, he'd believed that was enough. That building something great required sacrifice, and anyone unwilling to make that sacrifice didn't belong. But looking at Tom, seeing the exhaustion etched into his face, the pride warring with weariness in his eyes, Marcus realized he'd confused suffering with dedication. "The gala," Marcus said. "Victoria Laurent. How do you know her?" A small smile crossed Tom's face. "We met at Lily's school. Her niece is in the same class. We've become friends. She's been incredibly kind to us. She knows about Sarah, about everything. When she had an extra ticket to the gala, she insisted I come. Said I needed one night to remember I'm more than just a grieving widower and struggling single dad. She's trying to recruit you," Marcus realized aloud. "That's why she was asking about your work." Tom nodded. "She offered me a position at one of her portfolio companies. Better pay, flexible remote work, full benefits. It's a good opportunity. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know." Tom looked out the window at the city lights. "I like it here. I like the work, the team. But I have to put Lily first. I'll always put Lily first." The words hung between them, a quiet challenge. Marcus thought about his own life, the ex-wife who'd left because she'd said she was tired of being married to a ghost, the nieces and nephews he barely knew, the friends who'd stopped calling because he never had time. He'd told himself the sacrifice was worth it, that success required total devotion. But sitting across from Tom, who'd found a way to be devoted to both his daughter and his work, Marcus wondered if he'd just been afraid. Afraid that letting life in, letting people matter, would mean losing his edge. Afraid that if he acknowledged the humanity of his employees, he might have to acknowledge his own. "Don't make any decisions yet," Marcus heard himself say. "Give me a week." The next 7 days transformed Marcus in ways he hadn't anticipated. He started reading the employee files he'd always delegated to HR, really reading them. Sarah Martinez in accounting had 3 kids and coached their soccer team. David Wong in engineering was completing his PhD at night. Rachel Foster in marketing was caring for her mother with Alzheimer's. They weren't just workers, they were people with entire lives happening outside these walls. And he'd been so focused on productivity metrics and quarterly earnings that he'd never truly seen them. Marcus called an emergency meeting with his executive team. "We're implementing a new flexible work policy," he announced. "Core collaboration hours from 10 to 2. Otherwise, employees manage their own schedules as long as work gets done. Full remote options for roles that allow it. Parental leave expanded to 6 months, paid. And I want to fund an emergency assistance program for employees facing financial hardship." His CFO looked stunned. "Marcus, this will cost millions. It's going to impact our margins. Then we'll make it up somewhere else. We'll cut executive bonuses if we need to, starting with mine." Marcus felt a strange lightness in his chest. We built this company to innovate, to be better than the competition. Well, Google and Apple figured out years ago that taking care of people isn't just ethical, it's smart business. We're behind, and we're catching up. What brought this on? His COO asked carefully. Marcus thought about Tom, about Victoria Laurent's assessment of his leadership at that venture capital meeting. She hadn't invested because she'd seen what he'd been blind to. That a company culture built on grinding people down wasn't sustainable or innovative. It was just cruel. I've been confusing strength with rigidity, he said. And I've been wrong. He found Tom in his cubicle that afternoon and handed him an envelope. What is this? Tom opened it, then froze. Inside was a check and a letter. The check is a grant from our new emergency assistance fund. You're the first recipient. It should cover 6 months of childcare costs. The letter is your new employment contract if you want it. Senior analyst position. 20% raise. Flexible schedule. And full remote option 3 days a week. Marcus paused. I can't give you back the time you've lost with Lily because of my policies, but I can make sure you don't lose any more. Tom stared at the documents, his eyes reddening. Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay, and say you'll help me convince the others that this company is changing. Marcus extended his hand. I need people like you, Tom. People who understand that being excellent at work and being present in life aren't mutually exclusive. I forgot that. You never did. Tom shook his hand, gripping it firmly. Thank you. This means everything. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same ballroom where he'd first seen Tom with Victoria Laurent. This time, Tom was there as the guest of honor at the company's quarterly celebration, receiving the inaugural leadership award for someone who embodied the company's new values: excellence, innovation, and humanity. Lily was there too, a bright-eyed 7-year-old in a purple dress, sitting in the front row next to Victoria. When Tom finished his acceptance speech talking about resilience, gratitude, and the importance of workplaces that honor the whole person, Lily jumped up and ran to hug her father. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus barely heard it. He was watching Tom lift his daughter, seeing the pure joy on both their faces, and feeling something he hadn't felt in years, a sense that he was part of something truly meaningful. Later, Victoria approached him at the bar. That was quite a transformation, Mr. Chen. Call me Marcus, and I owe you an apology. You saw my company more clearly than I did. I saw a brilliant man who'd lost sight of what matters, she said. But you found your way back. That takes courage. She sipped her wine. For what it's worth, I'm reconsidering my investment decision. A company that can change like this is one worth betting on. I appreciate that. But even if you don't invest, this was the right thing to do. Marcus meant it. I spent 20 years building a company. I should have spent that time building a community. He looked around the room at his employees, his people laughing, celebrating, being human together. He saw parents who could now attend their kids' school plays. He saw night students who could manage their class schedules. He saw relieved faces and lighter shoulders. And he realized that success wasn't just measured in stock prices and market share. It was measured in the lives you touched, the burdens you helped carry, the moments you made possible. Tom approached with Lily, who immediately announced, Mr. Chen, I'm going to discover dinosaurs on Mars someday. Daddy says you make things happen. Can you make that happen? Marcus knelt down to her level, this small girl who'd lost her mother but still dreamed bigger than the sky. You know what, Lily? I think you're going to make that happen yourself. But if you ever need help building your spaceship, you let me know. She beamed at him, and Marcus felt his heart crack open in the best possible way. That night, driving home alone to his empty penthouse, Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his phone and called his ex-wife. Marcus? Amanda sounded surprised. Is everything okay? I want to apologize, he said. For all the years I chose work over us. For thinking that success meant sacrifice, and that sacrifice meant cutting out everything that made life worth living. You deserved better. You deserved to be seen. There was silence, then a soft exhale. Thank you for saying that. What brought this on? I met someone who showed me what I couldn't see. Marcus smiled to himself. A single dad who's been doing the impossible every day and never once complained. He taught me that strength isn't about how much you can endure alone. It's about showing up for the people who matter. I'm glad you learned that, Amanda said gently. Even if it came too late for us. It did, but maybe not too late for me to be a better person going forward. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his car outside his building, looking up at the glowing windows of his penthouse. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd call his sister, make plans to meet his nieces and nephews, start showing up for family dinners, join that book club his neighbor kept inviting him to. He'd spent 2 decades building an empire, Now it was time to build a life. And as he rode the elevator up, Marcus carried with him the most important lesson Tom Hendricks had taught him. That the measure of a man isn't found in his bank account or his title. It's found in the love he gives, the people he lifts up, and the grace he shows to those who are struggling. It's found in seeing people really seeing them and choosing to care.